الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
So today I want to talk about a number of subjects. So I want to talk about the current situation with regards to what the subject is called at the moment, sexual education. I'm going to talk a bit about the resources that I know exist in schools, and then I want to talk about the changes that are going to be happening to this subject in September 2020. And then following on from that, I want to talk about some of the things that we can do as a community, as individuals, as parents, as communities, to try and deal with some of the issues that I'm going to talk about at the beginning stages of my presentation, inshallah. So firstly, I'd like to just mention and talk about very briefly why parents are important. And the reason why I feel that this is important to stress is because, often whenever we see portrayals of parents in the news or in the media or on TV programs, or generally whenever people talk about parents in society, they always talk about parents in terms of as problems. Parents, negative issues around parents. Parents aren't doing this, parents aren't doing that, parents should be doing more of this. And so I think it's important, if we keep getting these messages, these negative messages about our role as parents, then we can sometimes build an understanding in our own minds, an incorrect understanding that we have no impact on our children's lives. But I think it's very important that we stress that we have a huge impact on our children's lives. Firstly, it's very important to note that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has elevated our rank and our status. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a role to fulfill that He did not give anybody else that role. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Oh, you who believe, protect yourselves and your family from the hellfire. And this is very important that we understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give a role as important as this to just anybody. He hasn't given that role to the Imam of Masjid for your children. He hasn't given that role to the teacher of your children. He hasn't given that role to anybody else. But for your children, He gave you that role. A role whose magnitude is huge. A role which is to safeguard yourself and your families from Jahannam. And that's a huge role and a huge task, which shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes the important role that parents play in the lives of their children. But it's also very important to note that you are effectively, each one of you are raising your children individually. So you're raising your family, you're raising your family, you're raising your family. But collectively, we're raising the next generation of our community, the next generation of worshippers. And so individually we may make choices to do or not to do certain things. Now those choices will impact the shape of our generation to come. Yeah, so our generation, what the Muslim community will be like for the next generation and their generation and the generation after them, that will determine what our future in this country will be. Are we going to have children who stick to the values of Islam, stick to the character of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people who obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people who will hold firm to what we believe in as Muslims? Or will our children go the same direction as other communities have gone? So if you think about it, the longer a community exists in this country, from migration to this country to living in this country, the longer and longer they live in this country, the pattern shows the easier it becomes for communities to give up those starting values, those beginning values, those values that their parents had when they first came to this country. The reality, that's the impact, that's the reality for the Christian community, for the Catholic community, for the Jewish community, for every community that's been here for a significant amount of time. But we can't allow that to happen to our community. We have to fight for the values of our children and their children and their children, so that they become the pillars of our community, the pillars of the masajid, and they stand very clearly behind and with the values of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I'm going to say something to you that you may find controversial. You are the most influential people in the lives of your children. In general society, people don't accept that. Because if you think about it, you think, what influences do our children have? They have their friends. Friends are a powerful influence in the lives of our children. The friends of our children will determine a lot of things about what ideas they hold, what behaviors they enact, how they really behave in life will be determined by our children's friends. But also, we've got the media, we've got TV, we've got lots of other influences around our children. We've got social media. All of these are influencing our children. But despite that, you are still the most influential people in the lives of your children. Think back to when your parents raised you. Now, sometimes you listen to your parents, sometimes you wouldn't listen to your parents. Sometimes your parents would say something to you and you think, oh no, why is my dad saying that again? Yeah? Because it's like the 50th time my dad has said that. Why does he keep repeating the same thing again and again? But the reality is that the same things that your parents taught you and our parents taught us when we were growing up are the things that impact us today. And we remember those things and we say those same things to our children, which shows that what our parents taught us are impacting us today. So I remember when I was growing up, my mother, she would always talk about charity. And she would say to me, whatever you do, give charity. Even if it's a small amount in charity. She would not just say that, yeah? Because anybody can just say something, but she would have a little tin in the house. And every few days she would put money in the tin. However much she had, she'd put maybe £2, £3, £5, £10, however much she could. She'd regularly put that such that in that tin there was always money. And whenever there was a cause that in a local masjid, there was an announcement, there's a cause that needs to be money for, she would then give for that purpose. And I remember those, not only hearing her voice in saying, look, give charity, whatever amount it is, just keep going. Whether something good happens to you, give charity. If something bad happens to you, give charity. But not only her saying impacted me, but her actions of actually giving charity regularly reinforced in my mind that charity is important. Now, I'm sure you've got lots of examples of things that your parents taught you when you were younger. And even that it might be that you didn't listen to that then, but you are listening to that now. You see the impact of those messages in your lives today and in the lives of your children. The reality is that for your children, you are irreplaceable. If for any reason you are no longer a part of your children's lives, really, I'll say to you very clearly that no matter who took over the responsibility of caring for your children, the reality is that they would not be able to love and care and worry about your children the way you do. Because it's a unique bond that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates in our hearts when our children are born. That we have this almost immediate love for a child that didn't exist in our eyesight, in our visual sight. That child didn't exist, and then that child is in front of us, that baby. And that love that we have, and that care that we have, and that concern that we have, and that worry that we have, starts from that moment. Now nobody else, no matter how close they are to you, whether they're your brothers or your sisters, and no matter how much they love your children, they will never be able to replace you as the parents of your children. So fundamentally, these are reasons, and I think we need to say to ourselves that look, we are influential and important in the lives of our children. Because the moment you start to say to yourself that you're not important in the life of your children, that is the moment we will definitely not be important in the life of your children. Because the things that we say, the things that we say and believe, they impact our actions. So if we think to ourselves, we're not important in the lives of our children, then that will mean that we will not do anything to try and be important in the lives of our children. And then we will not have any impact on our children. So I think we can believe that, we need to accept that. I want to talk a bit about the changes to this subject that's going to take place. But firstly, I think it's very important for us to understand the current situation with regards to these subjects at school. So I want to ask you questions because I don't want me just to lecture you for the next hour and a half. I want us to have a dialogue and discussion. And I'm happy while we're going through this presentation for you to ask any questions as we go along. Yeah? So you don't have to wait till the end and then ask questions. If you've got a question, just put your hands up and I'll take that as we go along, inshallah. So I want to ask you the question, what is SRE? What does it stand for?
Yes. Education.
Yeah, that's right. And how would you describe this to somebody? Imagine somebody came from another country and came to this country and then started to live in Bradford and said, look, I've heard this thing called SRE, can you explain it to me? How would you explain it to them? Brother in the back?
It's just teaching kids about different types of relationships.
Okay. And where is this subject? Where do you find this subject?
Where do you find it?
Yeah.
In school.
In schools, yeah. So in primary schools, secondary schools, yes. So this subject is the subject taught in all primary and secondary schools. Is it a statutory subject, meaning is it compulsory for all schools to teach this at the moment?
No.
No, it's not. And that's a big misunderstanding. It's not a statute. SRE, Sex and Relationship Education, which is usually taught within a subject called PSHE, is not a statutory subject at the moment. Yeah? And so what's the main problem when parents call me and say, look, I've got issues in my school? What are the main things, what are the key things that they say about SRE, the things that they have problems with, the teaching of this subject? What are the main things that they say, do you think? What issues do they have with SRE?
I think it's the same-sex education that's coming in. I think that's the biggest problem.
Okay, that's one thing, but that's not the main thing. I think sometimes what we need to do is say that sometimes things are in the media, yeah, and we then that shapes all of our thinking about a subject. And today I want to say to us, don't allow the media to shape our understanding of this subject, because if we do, then our understanding of this subject will probably be wrong, because the media, they focus on the most sensational aspects of anything, yeah. And so I think let's think about SRE as complete subject. Now, what are the main problems that parents have with this subject?
Age appropriateness.
Okay, so the question about age appropriateness, yeah. So is what is taught, is it too early to teach children about these subjects?
Yeah.
Subjects around sexual issues. Why do we have to introduce children, maybe even in primary school, to subject about sexual matters when they haven't even gone through puberty, when they're not even meant to be thinking about sexual issues? That's one thing, yeah? What else? What other problems do parents have with this sort of subject?
Doesn't take into consideration people's religious beliefs.
Okay, that's important, yeah. So it doesn't take into account people's religious beliefs. And actually, even at the moment, the way schools are meant to be teaching the subject is to also take into account the religious background of the pupils in the school. But a lot of schools will just teach it exactly the same as any other school. And they will ignore the makeup of the pupils, where they come from, their background and their religion. They will not take that into account when deciding what to teach and which resources to use. Yeah. So one of the main problems that parents have is also the types of resources that are used. And sometimes the resources that are used are entirely inappropriate for children to be exposed to. And so the key question is, look, whenever I get calls, the main question I get asked, or the main complaint I hear from parents is that, they're using this resource in school, and I've seen it and it's completely inappropriate. Why are children being taught this? Why are my children being taught this? Why are any children being taught this? And at the moment, what rights do parents have? What's the main rights that parents have in this subject at the moment? Sex and relationship education in school, what is the main legal right that parents have?
But it was locked down.
Yes. So then you've got a legal right to withdraw. So you can withdraw from what age to what age? The starting age maybe is 5, start of primary school. Up to what age can you currently withdraw? Take some guesses. What do you think?
Age of 12 or
12? Higher?
all the way through.
Sorry?
All the way through. That's the moment.
What age? What age does that all the way through mean?
16.
It's actually 18.
Oh, 18,
Yeah. It doesn't, that 16 and 18 doesn't make much difference, to be honest, because this subject is not really taught in colleges. Yeah. But just to give you an understanding of the subject, that currently you've got the right to legally withdraw your child from the age of 5 all the way up to 18. And if your child stays on an extra year to 19, then that applies up to the age of 19 as well, in college. So that's the current situation. And I think it's important for us to understand the current situation so that when we talk about the changes, you can compare and contrast what are the changes going to be and how does that compare to what the situation is, what the law is and the rights our parents are at the moment. So I'll talk a bit about the resources that are used in schools. And I only talk about the resources that I know are being used in schools. And sometimes, and I was speaking to one brother before and saying, look, the problem is, sometimes parents are saying, look, this is being used in my children's school. And I said, how do you know? Somebody told me that this is being used in my children. Okay, have you asked your school what resources they use? No, I haven't. That's the main thing you need to do. Ask. The only way, because each school uses different resources. Some schools will use some of the more explicit resources. Other schools will not use those resources. So it's very important that we ask, very important that we ask schools what resources our children use. But these are resources that I have come across. The first two are resources that I know are used in a wide variety of schools. So the first resource I want to talk to you about is Channel 4 Living Rowing. And this was in the past one of the most popular resources that was used in schools. And obviously, as I said, it's produced by Channel 4, a major company, major TV company. The education arm of Channel 4, Channel 4 Education, produced this resource. And it was used across the country in so many different schools. And when parents came across this resource, they were very upset. The reason why is because it contained a cartoon of a man and a woman engaging in sexual relations. And one of the problems with that is that this resource was first used in secondary schools. And then over the years, it started to be used in primary schools. And parents across the country, whether they're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, or even had no religion at all, when they saw this resource, they said, look, we don't think this is appropriate. So they started to complain across the country until it got to the desk of the schools minister at the time, who at the time was Nick Gibb. So the schools minister brought in Channel 4 executives and said to them, look, why is this resource being used in schools? It's completely inappropriate for primary schools. So Channel 4 withdrew that resource, withdrew the program, and then they edited it. So they took away the clips of the man and woman engaging in sexual relations as a cartoon, and then they re-released it. And so now there's a newer version of that. But the problem is some schools may still be using the old version. So it's very, very important, as I said before, to find out definitively, as an absolute certainty, find out for certain what resources your children's school are using, is to go into the school and ask the school, what resources are being used in our school. The second resource I want to talk to you about is BBC Active Sexual Relationship Education, which is also being used in primary schools. And this contained a video clip of a man, a woman, and a child, walking through a house completely naked. And this was considered to be appropriate as an educational resource. Now, in normal circumstances, if we had a video that contained a child naked, what would we call this video? In normal circumstances, we have a video of a child naked. What do we call this? This is pedophilia. This is child pornography. Pedophiles would create this for their own reasons. Now, the point to note about educational resources is that they do not follow the same laws as normal videos. For example, you know, if there's a film that you've seen on the, you know, on the side of a bus or advertised somewhere, it will have a rating, a classification from the BBFC, from the British Board of Film Classification. It'd be PG or 12 or 15 or 18. Now, educational resources are exempt from those classification systems, such that you could have quite an explicit resource, yeah, that can be shown to children legally because they are exempt from the rating systems. Now, this resource, which had the man, woman, and a child walking through a house naked, this was also shown on TV as part of BBC Education, yeah, in the morning, because it doesn't even follow the same rules as the watershed. The watershed is 9 o'clock. You can't show certain types of programs or films which have explicit or sexual content or content related to using swear words, profanity. But these resources are exempt from all of those rules, which is one of the problems. That's why about a few years ago, there was one MP in Parliament who was trying to get a law passed so that these education resources could have a rating, just like normal films, but it never went through Parliament. Which is what's strange. It's like, why wouldn't anybody want ratings to be applied? But because there was a sex education lobby that was arguing that, look, that will stop children from being taught about certain matters, and they use their arguments, their ideologically driven arguments, to stop these things from protecting our children. There's picture books also in school, picture books that go through sometimes very matters that we don't want children to be exposed to. Like, for example, there's an author. Yeah, if you ever have this author, your picture books are like board books. Yeah, and you usually use those board books. They're more pictures than writing. So they have very little writing and have a lot of pictures. They're used for young children to understand things as they grow up, numbers, colors, shapes. They talk about a story, a very short story that a teacher can read to children and say, follow this story. It's about a prince and a princess, or it's about a poor man and a rich man, and there's like maybe a moral to that story at the end. So these sort of books exist in schools. Now, if there's an author that you come across and her books are in your children's school, you need to worry. Her name is Babette Cole, and she, in her books, one of her books, she has line drawings of a man and a woman, and basically the caption is, "This is how a man fits into a woman." And like, why would a young child need to know that? Why are we exposing young minds, young impressionable minds, to issues around sexuality at such a young age? Why do we need to do that as a society? Surely that makes children more vulnerable rather than less vulnerable. That's almost amounting to indoctrinating them, or almost ruining their innocence and getting them to think about subjects that they shouldn't need to be thinking about. They should be thinking about going out on a sunny day and playing football. Yeah, they should be thinking about playing with their toys. Yeah, they shouldn't be thinking about these adult matters. Unfortunately, adult minds have exposed young children to these things at a young age in a very inappropriate way. You also have lots of storybooks that normalize LGBT relations. So, for example, you have King and King, which is a fairy story about a prince who's looking for a princess to marry. He doesn't find a princess, but he finds a prince, and he becomes King and King, and they start to rule a kingdom together. Or Silo Makes Three, which is about gay penguins who decide to adopt an egg, or the zookeeper gives them an egg to adopt, and they raise the egg, and the egg hatches, and the baby penguin, and they raise the penguin together. So these sort of stories are available, and the thing is, I think one thing we need to very, very clearly say is that, look, there's two different things, two different issues we need to separate. One is, okay, we live in a society where different relationships are acceptable, that we do not accept. We do not want to live those lives, neither do we want our children to live those lives. Yeah, maybe there's same-sex relationships, for example, or boyfriend and girlfriend. Yeah, so these type of relationships, boyfriend and girlfriend relationships, or same-sex relationships, go against our fundamental belief that marriage is the only relationship through which sexual relations can happen between a man and a woman. That anything outside of that relationship is forbidden, is sinful, is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's our starting point. But we live in a society that is not governed by the same rules as us. A society that is secular, and secular liberal society, where their ideas about good and bad are based upon what people believe is good and bad. And they don't believe that the morality of religion should impact how people should live their lives. So in life, people decide how they should live their lives. And if you want to live your life a particular way, the law will change the way, it will change the framework of society and the rules of society so that you are able to live your life as you want. So we live in this type of society. Yeah? And so in this society, it's acceptable for a man to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Yeah? It's okay for a man to have a girlfriend, and it's okay for a man to have a boyfriend, and it's okay for a man to marry a man. We don't believe in these values. But we can say, look, we live in a society where there are people who identify as being same-sex people, yeah? And so we need to live with these people, yeah? And we work with these people, they may be our neighbors. And we can say, okay, we live in a society, they live with us, and we'll treat them with respect. But we will not allow for our children to be taught this in school as though it's acceptable. And for children to be taught in school that it's okay to be Muslim and gay, like they have done in schools across the country, where they say to children, look, being gay is not a problem. To Muslim children, look, being gay is not a problem, but also being a Muslim and gay is not a problem. Because that is the school interfering and intervening in a discussion about what is permissible or not permissible. And that's not for a school to be involved in. The teacher is not a Maulana, is not a sheikh, is not somebody who understands Islamic fiqh. So you shouldn't get involved in a discussion about Islamic fiqh, about our understanding of morality. Schools should just be there to educate children, and if they want to present an opinion, they should present an opinion as an opinion, not as a truth, an ultimate truth. So what I'm saying here is that we separate two things. We separate that there's people in the society who we may not disagree with their life choices. Somebody drinks alcohol. We don't drink alcohol. We say we're not going to interfere in your ability to live your life how you want to live. You live your life how you want to live, but don't force your lifestyle choices on me and my children. Yeah, I don't go to a pub and I don't drink. Don't force me to live that lifestyle. I don't have a girlfriend. Yeah, and we as Muslims don't have girlfriends. Don't force us to follow and to live by your standards of morality. I don't believe that my children or myself and my children should involve ourselves in same-sex relationships. But you can live that life as you want, but do not impose that upon me and my children. And that's where there's a problem in society, where this idea of tolerance is only one way. Tolerance is that we accept everything that everybody else believes, but tolerance is not about accepting that we have differences and we believe different things. And that's the contradiction of the society, unfortunately, that we live in. But we've got to argue these things in a way which show, look, we're not calling for same-sex people to be killed. We're not calling for same-sex people to be discriminated or insulted or to be attacked. We're not calling for any of these things. All we're saying is we've got particular values that we want ourselves to live by and to teach our children. Now, schools should not interfere in that because values are fundamentally the role of parents and not the role of schools. In schools as well, they have other types of approaches. So for a long, long time, schools have been teaching children, especially in secondary schools. It's not really in primary schools, but in secondary schools, they will teach children about the importance that they don't say to children, don't engage in sexual relations, even though the age of consent in this country is 16. They will say to children that, you decide when you're ready. But when you are ready to engage in sexual relations, then you have to have safer sex. So use condoms. And so we'll find boys and girls will be shown in classroom how to put on a condom. And this is not a new thing. This has been happening in school for the last 20 years. This is not a new thing. Sometimes when we talk about these things, people present them as new things. This has been happening in school for many years. I mean, when I was in school, back in the 18th century, when I was in school back in the late 80s, early 90s, they used to teach a subject called sex education back then. I remember my father got a letter, and he thought, as parents, you trust the schools, yeah. You think teachers are there to do the best by your children. So if you get a letter, the letter said, would you like, children are going to be taught about relationships and the importance of being safe, and all those language which almost hide the reality of what they're going to teach. And so my father said, okay, yeah, everybody else is going to be taught this, you taught this. So he signed the letter, and I went for this class. And the class had a large proportion of Muslim children in it. This was a secondary school. And so this has been taught in schools for many years. The only thing is that we've not really been paying attention to what's being taught in schools. So we've allowed these things to be taught to our children without us challenging some of these things. So fundamentally, these types of resources, it doesn't matter, these resources might not be used in your children's school. The way to find out is to go to your children's school. But the reality is all the resources that are used at the moment in children's schools have a similar type of approach. The approach which says, now look, you're a child, but you should live your life as you please. You should make your own choices. You should live your own life. You should be the best person you can be. But these type of ideas say to children that, look, you've got no boundaries, or the boundaries that your parents have set are not the boundaries that you necessarily need to follow. That's why in Birmingham some children were told by the deputy head teacher, look, if you might be you're Muslim, but you might be gay, yeah, and you might one day decide to come out to be gay. Not decide, you might come out to be gay. Or they'll say to children, look, you're a boy, but you might be a girl, and you're a girl, you might be a boy. And I was speaking to a parent and say, look, the child was in school, and he was told that you're a boy, you might be a girl, but you're a girl, you might be a boy, and if your parents don't like it, we will help you. Now, is that really the role of a school to try and interfere in the relationship between parents and children? Really, that's not the role of schools. And I'm not saying all schools do this, yeah, but I'm saying those schools that do this is completely unethical for them to engage in this type of action. Yeah, this is completely unethical. Really, schools are meant to be, supporting parents in raising their children. Schools don't raise children. Yeah, schools don't raise children. Schools support parents in raising children. So schools should not take over the role that parents actually have in reality, which is to raise children. So ultimately, they will teach there's different relationships. Boyfriend, girlfriend, marriage, these are all different relationships. And they're all of equal value. None of them are better than any other one. Because legally they're all acceptable, but that legally is not the only standard by which people live their lives by, isn't it? There's also moral standards. And although the legal standards are one, the moral standards are many. You go out past this center onto the main road and you ask people, what is a loving relationship like? What can you define a good relationship, a loving relationship? There will be many views for different people, depending upon if that person is Muslim or Christian or Jew or atheist or secularist, depending on the background and the way somebody views life. They will determine the answer to this question in completely different ways from another person with a different worldview. So the reality is we can't say that these issues have one answer and it should be taught in that way, but rather these are subject matters that are very linked to how you view life, and how you view life will determine how you view these particular subjects. Now we will say marriage between a man and a woman is the only way in which a family can be structured Islamically from our perspective, and that's what our view is. That's from our worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and from the following of the example of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is our conception of how a family should be. I'm going to talk a bit about the changes to this subject happening from September 2020. Now, one thing to note is that this law, the law that was passed to make the new subjects that are going to be taught from September 2020, to make them as statutory subjects, these were passed in 2017, in the Children and Social Work Act 2017. This law, so some people say, look, is the bill going through Parliament? Is the law going to be passed? No, the law was passed in 2017. Yeah. So we can be very clear about that. The law has been passed in 2017. These subjects are going to be made statutory. Yeah. And the changes will happen from 1st of September 2020. Although some schools have been asked to take part in a pilot to teach these subjects sooner, so that they've been invited to take part in that. So it may be some schools are teaching it sooner, but the legal status of these subjects will not change until the 1st of September 2020. I'm going to go through briefly what these changes are. So in primary school, there's going to be a new subject that's taught from September 2020. What is this new subject called?
Relationship education.
Yes, the relationship education. So let's talk about relationship education. So the government says relationship education does not replace sex education. It's not a replacement. It's a new subject. So relationship education is a new subject. So if a school decides to still teach sex education, you will still have the right, as you do now, to withdraw from this. So in a primary school, a school will teach relationship education. That's compulsory for all schools, whether it be maintained schools, which are schools that are controlled by the local authority, whether it be academies, free schools, or independent schools, Muslim schools, yeah, or Jewish schools or Christian schools, any type of school. These same rules apply to all schools. So when a school decides to teach a subject for September 2020, they will have to teach relationship education. This is statutory. A school cannot say, I don't want to teach relationship education. They have to. Now, when they teach relationship education, they can also teach sex education as a separate lesson. Now, if they teach sex education as a separate lesson, you will have the right to withdraw from that class, from sex education classes. Now, so from relationship education, you will not have the right to withdraw. You can't withdraw from these classes. Yeah, your children have to attend those lessons. So a school has to teach relationship education, and when they teach it, you can't withdraw from relationship education. Now, as for sex education, you can withdraw. But our main concern is that some schools will decide to teach the sex education elements within relationship education, such that when you ask to withdraw, you will not be able to withdraw fully from what you are entitled to withdraw from, which is sex education, because those will be included now within relationship education. Now, if there's a complaint, parents complain, why are you teaching sex education aspect within relationship education classes in a primary school? Who's going to listen to parents? Who can they complain to? Department of Education or the local authority? They have a very poor track record of responding to parental concerns in this area. So I don't really have very much faith in that. And I absolutely have no faith in Ofsted and in their ability to respond to parental concerns. Because Ofsted is not, as it says, an independent organisation that responds to an independent framework applying to schools. No, it's a very, at the moment, from our perspective, from every perspective, it's a very ideologically driven organisation that has very clear ideas of what it perceives to be its aims for school, which is that part of almost social engineering schools. And their victimization of Muslim schools has been atrocious. But because it's perfectly acceptable for Muslims to be treated this way in this society, they get away with it. Now, so who actually then responds to these complaints of parents? We don't have anybody that we have any confidence in responding to these complaints. In secondary school, there's going to be a new subject that's going to be taught from September 2020. What's this new subject called in secondary school? Yes, so RSE, Relationship and Sex Education. So this is a new subject that's going to be taught from September 2020 in all secondary schools. This is a compulsory subject, a statutory subject that applies to all schools as well. Even Muslim schools, they have to teach the subject from September 2020. Now, we need to think of this subject as two parts. It's not just one subject. There's a relationship education part and there's a sex education part. Which part will parents be able to withdraw from? What do you think? Yes. So you're better to withdraw from the sex education part, but not the relationship education part. So even though it's one subject, you can withdraw from only half of the subject. Now our main concern is that when you look at the curriculum for relationship and sex education, it's one whole curriculum. It's not very separate. And so schools will have to determine what it considers to be RSE, RE, and what is considered to be sex education. And so some of these aspects may be taught within relationship education, and when parents ask to withdraw from sex education, the school say, no, this is part of relationship education and not sex education. So the clear line between what is relationship education and what is sex education is not absolutely clear. So for example, what are marriage and civil partnerships? Does that come under relationship education or sex education? What do you think? So schools have to teach in secondary schools what marriage and civil partnerships are, including their legal status, that marriage and civil partnerships carry legal rights and protections not available to couples who are cohabiting or who have married, for example, in an unregistered religious ceremony. What do you think that comes under, relationship education or sex education? It may come under relationship education, or it may come under sex education. But because the government hasn't clearly outlined what comes under what, schools will have to define, decide and define which areas these topics come under. And that's the problem. The government is unwilling to set a clear dividing line between the two. Now, the last bit of information you need to know about secondary schools is that if you will not have the right to withdraw, but you have the right to request withdrawal. Yeah? This is very important to know the difference. The right to withdraw means that you say to the head teacher, I want to withdraw my child. You write to the head teacher says, okay, you can withdraw your child. That's it, done. The right to request withdrawal is that you write to the head teacher and say, I would like to request to withdraw my child. Now the head teacher decides whether to accept that or reject that. The head teacher now has the power to say yes or no. The government says in the majority of cases, the head teacher will say yes. But it hasn't clearly stated under which circumstances will a head teacher be allowed to say no, you can't withdraw. And because of that, it's up to each individual school to decide when we say yes, when we say no. But the head teacher has the final say on this matter. If the head teacher accepts your right to withdraw, then you will have only up to the age of 15 the right to withdraw your child. When a child turns 15, which is three terms before the child turns 16, 3 terms before the child turns 16, the child will be given the option. Do you want to opt in, or do you want to remain withdrawn? So now the parent no longer has a say in it, the child will decide. Which is actually, so when the headlines just recently came out in February saying the right to withdraw remains with parents, that wasn't the truth. That's not clear. That's not right. That's actually a lie. That's a lie. Because parents have a downgraded right to withdraw, and even then they can only withdraw from some aspects of the curriculum and not all aspects of the curriculum. Now, I'm going to talk a bit about the guidance, because the guidance was meant to be published in spring 2019 as the government initially promised, but actually it was then suddenly rushed through and it was published on the 25th of February. So I'm going to go through the guidance and explain a bit about it, because it's important that we understand the guidance. But the government has said, about LGBT, we need to understand, the government has said that in the guidance that schools will have the right to decide when and how to teach LGBT related issues, but they will have to teach it at some point. So schools can't say we're not going to teach anything about LGBT, but they will have the choice to decide when and how to teach it. Now I want to make some points about gay marriage, because this is important to our subject matter. In 2013, the Equal Marriage Act was passed. What did the Equal Marriage Act allow that wasn't allowed in the past? Anyone know what the Equal Marriage Act, Same-Sex Marriage Act allowed? Clue in the title. Same-Sex Marriage Act. What did it allow?
Same-sex marriages.
Yeah, same-sex marriages. So it allowed, so it changed the definition of marriage. This is actually a revolution in family, in the understanding of family in Western society. Because for centuries, actually, ever since an idea about relationships started, marriage has always been in all civilizations, and ultimately a union between a man and a woman that engage in a contract or a relationship through which children are born and raised. But this act changed that completely. And there was very little opposition to it, to be honest. There was very little opposition to it. That's almost an example of where we are as a society. But what it did was that it made the definition of marriage change from a relationship between a man and a woman in marriage to a relationship between a man and a man and a woman and a woman. So legally, marriage is all of those things. Now, why is that important? Is because schools have a legal responsibility to teach children about the nature of marriage, as set out in the Education Act 1996. The schools have to teach children about the nature of marriage. But now the definition of marriage has changed. That means now that schools have to teach children about the nature of marriage. And so that means they have to teach children about gay marriages. Yeah? And gay marriages on par with traditional marriages. They're legally they're the same. Morally there may be differences, but legally they're the same. So the issue is, you can't say to schools, you can't talk about about LGBT issues completely. First of all, schools are required to, because the legal definition of marriage has changed, but also because now the guidance says that has to happen. Now, in the future, that can be challenged in different ways legally. There's a scope for that. But at the moment, this is what we're working with. This is what we're working with in terms of what schools are required to do. This is a picture from a school in East London, which has a high proportion of Muslim children. It's in Tower Hamlets. And you've got children, Muslim children, holding up placards saying, "Some people are gay, get over it." Now, imagine if there's a child from a family who are vegans or vegetarians, and those children were told to hold up placards saying, "Some people are meat eaters, get over it." Imagine the outcry that there would be to say, "How dare you impose your idea of what is acceptable to children who don't believe in that conception of dietary living." Yeah. Why? How can you say that the parents believe and the child is vegetarian? How dare you, against the beliefs of that child, force them to hold up a placard saying some people are meat eaters, get over it? Imagine in a school, a Muslim organization came into a school and said to children, "You hold up these placards, yeah, that accept a lifestyle choices, Christian children, about Islam and about the living by Islamic codes of conduct, and how parents would be up in arms about it, and rightly so, because children should not be imposed upon these views that go against the belief and values of their parents. So neither should Christian children be forced to change their name to Abdullah, or to even start practicing or living by codes of behavior that go against their worldview or their viewpoint or their belief or their religious or philosophical positions. Neither do we impose that upon other children, but we don't allow that to be imposed upon our children as well. In the Birmingham schools, it's very clear even that the children will be asked to take part in mock gay pride marches. Now, what is the connection between that and saying that we need to treat everybody with respect? Okay, we accept. We treat everybody with respect. We're polite to everybody. We don't mistreat anybody. But why does a Muslim child or any child need to take part in a gay pride parade in order to accept that that people have equal rights in this society? Why is it that young children in schools are being told, the boys are being told, "Look, why are you trying on dress?" Yeah, because a dress is not a female piece of clothing. It's not a female piece of clothing. It could be, it's just a piece of clothing, and you decide what to wear. Or having a man dressed up as a woman coming into a school and saying to children, "Now look, these dresses are just dresses. They're not. I'm wearing a dress. I'm a man. I'm wearing a dress. That's absolutely fine. And you're a man as well. You're boys. You can wear a dress as well. There's nothing wrong with that." So what world are we living in? where children are being asked to practice beliefs and values in schools that go against their values as children from a religious or philosophical foundation, whether it be Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Hindu, or Sikh children. Why is that being allowed to happen? And nobody, and actually the people then who start to say, why is that happening? They get told, why are you saying that? Not the people who are imposing that in the schools. There's an example, when we worked at Tower Hamlets with parents, this was in 2012, we asked parents to write down their experiences of sex education and what issues they were having. So this one mother wrote this, and I was really impacted by what she wrote. And she said, look, well, when my child attended a sex education class, first of all, I said to the school, take my children out from the sex education classes. I don't want them to attend the sex education classes. When my child attended the sex education class, he came home, my son came home from school, and he was on the computer doing his homework. And I spoke, and I was doing some chores, and I walked past the computer, and I saw my son watching something, so I went closer, and I found out he was watching pornography. And I said to my son, what are you doing? Why are you watching pornography? And my son said to me that after my sex education class, my teacher said that you need to type in some keywords as homework in the computer. So type in vagina and penis. And if you type in those words into the internet, you're going to get pornography, isn't it? So the child, because he wanted to do his homework, did that. So when their mother found out, she went and complained to the head teacher and said, look, how dare you? How can it be that my child has been asked by his teacher to access pornography? This is completely unacceptable. The head teacher's response was not, let's investigate the complaint. Let's get the governors involved, or let's get the teacher, at least in the first instance, and ask whether that happened or not. Let's verify it, that this happened, and let's deal with it. No, his response was, turn off your internet. That should be your solution. And the parent was like, how dare you say that to me? What? That's not a solution. That's not dealing with my complaint. So she complained to the Department of Education. She complained to the Education Department, the local authority, and the Department of Education. Nobody really took notice of what she had to say. And then she just felt at the end of it, as though she said, my son's innocence has been stolen. My relationship with my son has been compromised. I hold the school and the system solely responsible for this. So imagine you were in that situation and you felt that this is what the school did. Any trust that you had in the school would be destroyed just by that one incident. And then sometimes when parents complain about what's happening in schools, they're made to be in the wrong. They're made to be the ones who are causing trouble. They're made to be the troublemakers, and not the schools who are inflicting this on children. I'm going to talk about some actions that we can do and that we need to do. Because the reality is, the law has been passed. Last Wednesday, the final step, the near final step to making this a reality in schools, making relationship education statutory in schools was completed. So that means the regulations were passed in the House of Commons. And as we know, all of the Muslim MPs voted for this to pass. Yeah? And that's something we need to recognize. Yeah? You know, in these issues, in the issues that really concern the Muslim community, those MPs that sit in the parliament that have Muslim backgrounds, they don't have our backs as a community. They don't support us as a community. Rather, they will prioritize their career or their face or their image over the community. Time and again we've seen this. When gay marriage was being passed back in 2013, same thing happened. Same thing happening now. Yeah? And so really, we've got to recognize that these MPs are not there for our purpose. And actually, there's other MPs who are not Muslim. They may be Christian, or they may just be people of conscience. Yeah? People who believe in certain values, or people who believe in doing the right thing. They were the ones who stood up. Those 23 MPs who stood up and said, we're not going to vote for this, we're going to vote against it. They're the ones who should be congratulated, not these Muslim MPs, who are ultimately just a waste of space, to be honest. Now this has been passed in Parliament, and the last stage is there's going to be a vote in the House of Lords on Wednesday, and it's going to go through. The reality is it's going to go through. Yeah, we make dua, we do any action we can to stop that, but it will go through. One way or another, these sex education lobbies have been trying for many years to make these subjects statutory. They started, when we were set up in 2008, SRE Islamic as our organisation was set up in 2008 to respond to the Labour government's attempt at that time to make these subjects compulsory and statutory in all schools. They didn't succeed at that time, but then that doesn't stop these same organisations, these same sex education lobbies from trying again and again and again and again. And they succeeded in 2017 in passing this act. There's two actions that we need to do. I'll start with the medium-term action. The medium-term action is we've got to work in our children's schools to make an effective change. Firstly, there's 3 points we need to recognise. The government hasn't mandated, hasn't made compulsory resources that can be used in your children's school. Hasn't said you have to use this book or this program or this organisation to deliver this in your children's school. Rather, it's left that up to the schools to decide. So if a school says, we have to use this resource, say, no, you don't. We have to use this outside agency. No, you don't. We have to use this video. No, you don't. Rather, a school doesn't have to use anything. They can decide what to use and what not to use. Similarly, when the government outlined the changes to the curriculum, these are the curriculum changes. So you look at that, these are the curriculum changes for RSE. Yeah? Now, what's absent there? What should be on the side there? Yeah? So this is all of the things that we should be taught in secondary school. Yeah? I know you can see that. It's quite far away, yeah, from you. But there's two columns. One column is what the topic area is, and then a breakdown of the topics. There's only two columns. What is missing there? Like you usually find in a curriculum, in a developmental curriculum.
Resources to be used?
Not resources, no. Because we said the resources are not defined by the government.
Targets.
Sorry?
The targets.
Not the targets. But how do you know when to teach different topic areas? What would you add in there?
Age.
The age, yes. The year groups, yeah? Year 1, year 2, year 5, year 6, year 7, year 8, year 9. They're not there. The reason why they're not there is because schools can decide when to teach these topic areas. So when people are saying that schools have to teach a subject from year 1, that's not true. It's not true. It's actually, it does us disservice when we say that. Rather, the curriculum starts from the start of primary years, but a school can say, actually, we're going to teach this. Some of these subjects are about importance of friendships, how to build and maintain friendships, how to be safe online. So they can decide, we're going to start this one in year 1, this one in year 3, this one in year 5, this one in year 6. Yeah. So this is determined by the school, and actually, I'm going to also argue this is also determined by the school in partnership with parents, and that's my next point. So schools have a lot of flexibility in how and when they teach these topics, and a school has not said that the government has not said they have to be taught in this way and at this in these year groups. So that's very important to note first. But secondly, what's important that we understand is the guidance. You know, the government guidance around this subject sets out what the schools should do, what rules they should abide by when they are discussing this subject, when they're deciding and planning these subjects. And that guideline, that guidance document sets out some key points. It's a long document, but from those, these are the points that are very important. These are the actual wording within the document as well. Parents are the prime educators and the first teachers for their children. So the guidance document states very clearly, parents are the first educators and the primary educators of their children. The first teachers and primary educators of their children. That's what we are. Secondly, schools must consult parents in developing and reviewing their policy. Now, the policy in a school is important. The policy is agreed and written by governors. I was a governor. I was a vice chair of a governing body for a number of years. And issues would come to us as a governing board, and we would look at policies, we would review policies, we would write policies. The policies set out the way something should be done, the processes that should be followed. So for the RE and RSE policies, that sets out how these subjects should be taught in a school. So when they should be taught, how they should be taught, which resources should be used. What happens when a parent requests the right to withdraw in a primary school and a secondary school from sex education in a primary school or from sex education in a secondary school? What should the response to the head teacher be? When can the head teacher refuse that request? And being very clear, only in exceptional circumstances should the head teacher refuse. And these are the reasons why the head teacher should refuse. All these should be within the policy. And the policy should also contain how are we going to consult parents. So all of this is in the policy. But the policy itself should be formulated, should be agreed after consulting parents. So parents should be involved in how this policy is written. Also, it says all schools should work closely with parents when planning and delivering these subjects. So therefore, schools should work closely with parents. Schools and parents should work in partnership. So schools can't decide everything and then come to the parents and say, look, we decided everything. No. Consultation requires that they work closely in the planning and delivery. That means parents should be involved at the beginning stages of the process. Fourthly, schools must ensure that their teaching and materials are appropriate, having regard to the age and religious background of their pupils. That's a very important point. That sets out, the guidance sets out that a school can't just teach it any way they want. They have to think about the age of the children and the religious background of the children. If the children are from a Christian background or a Muslim background or a mixture of different religious backgrounds, it has to understand what is the religious background of these pupils and how does that impact what we're going to teach in these subjects. So we need to educate schools in understanding what our values are. That's the bottom line. We shouldn't expect schools to understand what we believe and don't believe. Yeah? But rather we should say to them, look, this is what we believe as Muslims. If you've got a responsibility to take into account the religious background of the pupils in the school, they need to understand what our perspective is on these subjects. That's why one of the things that we're creating is a guidance document for schools, which sets out what are the changes that from 2020, because some schools don't even know what the changes are. So we're going to help them to understand that. What the guidance document sets out in relation to working with parents, and finally, what are our perspectives on these subject matters as a Muslim community, from our faith perspectives. And so what our issue is that parents need to go to the children's school and say to the school, look, I really value what you do with my children. You do such an excellent job with my children. That interaction has to be a positive one. You can't go to school and just say, you're going to corrupt my children, and I'm going to stop you from corrupting my children. No, because that's not going to work. You've got to go in a positive way, in a constructive way. To say to a school, look, we know that you're required to teach these things from next year. You probably don't want to teach a lot of these things, And we know that you don't decide what you can and cannot teach in terms of the skeleton curriculum. But we do know you've got a lot of flexibility. And we want to work with you to ensure that that flexibility is taken into account. But we want to work with you. As parents, I want to work with you to ensure that the end result matches up with the needs of the school, most importantly, the needs of the pupils, and also the needs of the parents. So all of that works together to ensure a good result. Because the reality is, we don't want conflict in schools, because conflict doesn't help anybody. So we say to the school very clearly, look, what's happening in Birmingham, we don't want to happen here. But what's happening in Birmingham happened because of a breakdown in a relationship between the parents and the schools. So we need to preempt that. We need to stop that from happening. And so let's work together and find something that meets our needs. That means that we need to make sure there's no explicit materials in the school. That means we need to ensure that that this is taught in a developmental way that meets the requirements, but that the more complex discussions are not taught early on, but they're taught much later on, when the children are able to absorb those more mature concepts. And that applies mainly in secondary schools. But we need to have that discussion. Now what we're doing is that we are doing a couple of things. We've got a parental toolkit that we've created, which explains all of this. How should parents step by step go into schools and establish a partnership with the schools to get an effective change to these subjects and the way they're taught. We've also just filmed 6 short videos that explain the toolkit, but in a video for berets, 4 minutes each, where parents can look at them one by one, and they can, by the end of it, have a clear idea. What are my first steps in going to a school in order to create change. But what we're doing is we're establishing parental groups in every single area of the country, yeah, to support parents. Because we know it's not easy for a parent to go to a school and try and create change. And there's going to be issues, there's going to be problems, and then there has to be some support networks for parents to do that. Part of that support networks will be connecting parents in an area together, but part of that support network will be that we will come and we will support parents in that as well. We'll answer questions, we'll give advice, and we will ensure that we achieve a good result. Because the reality is, if a school is going to start teaching in September 2020, then their planning is going to start now. So we need to get in there before the planning has been done. And we make that commitment to support you in achieving that, inshallah. Is there any questions so far? Because I know there's been a lot of information there, and I know that sometimes it's difficult to digest and understand. Also, if you want these slides afterwards, you're more than welcome to request them, and I'll provide them to you. There's no problem with that. I've also got a clipboard with a contact list to start us off with anybody who wants to join the local groups in this area, in Bradford. That will create one in Bradford and in other areas in London and all over the country. So before you go, if you leave your details, then we will contact you in order that we send you the toolkit, the videos, and set up those groups, those localized area groups as well. Any questions on what we've talked about so far? Okay, let's carry on, inshallah. So I want to talk about the medium-term actions, and also one of the things that we did also is that we had this postcard campaign that actually a lot of masajid in Bradford were a part of, which was very good, where we sent these postcards that were designed to send a clear message to the Department of Education to say, look, we demand the right to withdraw our children from relationship education, which we don't have the right to at the moment. And we sent over 125,000 of these postcards to across the country, which was we were very impressed by the speed and the response of the masajid, especially lots of the masajid in Bradford as well, who took part in that. So what we are going to do is, so that's finished now because of the votes that has taken place in Parliament around regulations. That's really finished and going to come to a natural end. So now we're doing the medium-term action, which is focusing on working in schools, and the longer-term actions. The reality, my brothers and sisters, is that we have an institution, many of the institutions within our community that support our children in a unique way. And these are Islamic institutions in our areas. They don't have physical buildings. It's rather a concept. But this concept is so powerful if we only took advantage of that and protected that. What do you think that institution is? What is the key institution in our communities which nurture and raise children?
The families.
The families. Absolutely. That is our strength. Our families are our strength. You talk to other communities. They will say to you, look, we really envy the Muslim community because you still have the family structure. Where in the rest of society, the family structure is broken down. Yeah? And when families break down, society pays the price. But in the Muslim community, family structure, even though we have problems, not to discount the fact we have problems, but it's relatively still intact. But nothing remains intact if you take it for granted. If you take it for granted, nothing remains. So we've got to protect the institution of the family. Because the reality is, we've been talking about different things, different ideas, different relationships that are being pushed in schools, and new ways of thinking. Yeah, where children are being told, you could be anything. You could be a tree. You could identify as a tree. You could identify as a dog. You could identify as an animal. You could be whatever you want to be. The reality is, society, in terms of its morals and values, is becoming ever more chaotic. Our children are going out in society and really being confused by all the things that are around them. And if we don't accept and don't believe the society around us and the values around us are not impacting our families, that we are fooling ourselves. You can't live within an environment and in a society without an impact. But if you recognize the impact, then you can actually fight back against that impact. If you think that we're all okay, it's fine, let's carry on as we are, then the society will impact all of us and our families. And in the end, we'll lose what we have in terms of our deen, our families, and our strength. The reality is that our children are in this chaotic world around us. When they come back into the home, that home should be the source of love, warmth, and tranquility for that child. Because that place is a place of love. Yeah? That place is a place where not only am I loved by my parents, but I'm also taught my values in speech and in deed, in the things that my parents tell me, and in the modeling of behavior from my parents. And that's what's teaching me how to be a Muslim man or a Muslim woman. That's where children learn these key base ideas. What is it to be a Muslim man, and how does a Muslim man behave? What is it to be a Muslim woman, and how does a Muslim behave? Those key ideas, the building block ideas, are built in the home through the way we interact, the mother and father, husband and wife interact in the home, and the way that the family interacts with each other. If the family home is a source of conflict where the mother and father are at their throats all the time, then that's not a healthy way for a child to be brought up. A child will rebel against the family and will have a whole lot of developmental problems as a result. So we start with recognizing a few important things. Values are caught rather than taught. The values that we believe in, the values that we hold, they are not just about the things that we say, but more importantly about the things that we do. So we can say to our children, don't lie. But when our children catch us, somebody calls up and you say to your wife, tell them that I'm not here, and your children see that, they will have this idea that, theoretically speaking, on paper, you don't lie, but in reality, you can lie. If you're in the car and somebody cuts you up on the road, and then you swear at the person, or you're angry at the person, your response is not befitting of a Muslim, then you're telling your children that theoretically you should act like a Muslim, but sometimes you can not act like a Muslim. So the reality is that we set the standards for our families, not just by what we say, but what we do. We say to our children, Salah is important, but Liverpool and Manchester United are playing, so just give it half an hour, then we'll pray Maghrib. Then you're saying that football is more important than Salah. So we need to reflect our values. So there's no disconnect between what we say and what we do. Ultimately, our children will see that disconnect and they'll say, operationally, we act in this way. Theoretically, we act in this way. So we need to, as parents, set the standards for our children. The reality is we can't give what we don't have. If we have aspirations for our children and expectations for how they should behave, we have to ensure that we set those high standards starting with ourselves. If there's anything about the way we behave and the way we deal with our children, then we need to change that in order to have that positive impact on our children. Because we need to be the best role models for our children. If we're not the best role models for our children, then we are not conveying our values to our children in the way that they should be conveyed. So that's what we need to keep in mind. All of these issues about how to discuss even sexual matters needs to be a part of the tarbiyah process in the home. Yeah? How do we raise and nurture and develop and grow our children so that they develop upon our values? Fundamentally, this is a matter of tarbiyah. Yeah? Whenever I speak to teachers of makatib or madaris, they will say, look, parents expect us to raise their children. And that's wrong. Ultimately, as parents, we raise our own children. We don't expect anybody else to raise our children. Yes, the imam of the masjid, the maktab teacher, the madrasa teacher, help us in our role. But they don't fulfill that role for us. They support us. So we need to recognize that in the way we teach our children. I'm going to go through some issues which I think are very important. And some people would say, look, what has this got to do with RSE and RE? But I'm not here just to talk to you about things in schools. Because I'm really interested in making a profound change in our communities. So not only do we start to address in schools, making a change for the better for our children, but also change our homes, so we make a better change for our children there as well. Because in the long term, the reality is in the long term, there's a fight for the hearts and minds of all of our children. That fight will be won and lost in the home. And that's the reality that we need to come to terms with. This is a hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and I want us to think about the lesson we learned from this. While we're listening to this hadith, I want to think, what lessons come to mind? What lessons can we learn from the interaction? This interaction is based on a young man who came to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam with a request. He came to the Messenger of Allah in a gathering like this, and he said to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, "O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, grant me permission to commit zina." The people around him, what do you think the people around him said? The boy is asking the Messenger, the young man is asking the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, "Give me permission to commit zina, illegal sexual relations." What do you think the people around him would have said? Go ahead. Yeah, is that what you think? What do you think they would say? What would the people have said? People would have said, "Go away then, get out of here. How dare you ask this question? Yeah? How dare you ask this question? Get out, go away." But the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam responded, Come sit with me, let's talk. What do you want? So the boy asked, "O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, grant me permission to commit zina." So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam replied, "Would you like it for your mother?" And the young man replied, "By Allah, I do not want my mother to commit zina. How could I? I do not want it for my mother." And then the Messenger of Allah replied, "The people do not want it for their mothers." The Messenger of Allah said to him, "Would you like it for your sister?" And the young man replied, How can I think of my sister committing zina? No way would I want it for my sister." The Messenger of Allah replied, "The people do not want it for their sisters." The Messenger of Allah said, "Would you like it for your daughter?" And the young man replied, "How would I want it for my daughter? By Allah, no way would I want it for my daughter." And the Messenger of Allah replied, "The people do not want it for their daughters." And then finally, the Messenger of Allah asked, "Would you want it for your maternal aunt, your mother's sister? Or your paternal aunt, your father's sister?" And the young man replied, "By Allah, I do not want it for my mother's sister or for my father's sister." And then the Messenger of Allah, he touched the young man, and he made dua for him. He said, "Oh Allah, forgive his sins and make him chaste, and keep him from committing keep him from committing desires, keep him from committing zina." And it was said about this boy that he never committed zina or even thought about it ever after that incident. Now I need your participation here now. Yeah, I know it's late on a Sunday afternoon, but I need you to participate with me. Yeah, what lessons can we learn from this interaction?
So you have to recognize when someone comes to you with a problem, with a question,
Yes.
not to say, "Look, let's not discuss this."
That's right. Yes. So yeah, excellent. So when someone comes to you with a question, take the question. Don't rebuke them for the question. When our children come to us with a question, don't say, "Get out of here, how dare you ask a question." Especially if the question is a detail, maybe they've heard something about a sexual issue. They come to you and say, "Dad, I've heard this. What does it mean?" Now, if you say to your child, "How dare you say this word in our home in front of me? How dare you disrespect me? Get out of here!" Will your children ever come to you and ask you a question ever again on anything sensitive? No, because you've created a barrier between yourself and your child. Your child isn't responsible for what they hear around them. They're not responsible for an idea that's come in their mind, or someone said something to them and they want clarification about it. If your child has come to you and asked you a question about a sensitive matter that he recognizes or she recognizes is a sensitive matter, and they've come to you, you should be pleased. they've come to you. A safe person who has the same values, the Islamic values as your child, who has the best interests of your child, the one who has the best interests of your child at heart. You can answer it in a way that is in line with the age of that child and the values that we believe in. If it's a very young child, say, look, some people behave that way, some people act that way, some people do that. As Muslims, we don't. The 5-year-old child will say, no, we don't do that as Muslims. That's not how we behave. That's not how we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not how we follow the example of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. At young age, you don't need to discuss a lot. The most important thing is you answer the question. Not that you have the most detailed answer in the world. Your child needs to see that you're the one to go to with their questions and you give them the answer. That's what you need to do. What else can we learn from this interaction? Yes.
Learn to hate the sin, not the sinner.
Sorry?
Learn to hate the sin, not the sinner.
Okay. Clarify that, please.
What that means is that Prophet ﷺ in this situation, he used examples in order to instill the hatred for the sin.
Okay, good.
But he did not rebuke the individual.
Yes.
Okay, condemning him because
Brilliant.
of the thoughts that he had.
Excellent, excellent. So just to rephrase that, so the brother mentioned that the Messenger of Allah was not was not attacking the young man. We're not saying, how dare you do that? What? He was actually saying, how evil is this sin that you are talking about? Not how evil are you. Yeah? People are not evil. You can't say that person is evil. No. The actions and deeds he does are maybe wrong, are sinful, or disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But nobody is inherently evil, or nobody is inherently good either. Yeah? Someone has a propensity to do good actions and bad actions, good deeds and bad deeds. All of these things are behavior. We know that behavior can be changed. Nobody is hostage to their own behavior. A desire comes to someone's mind. Now they have a choice: act upon it or ignore it. Now that's a choice. Nobody is compelled to do an action or not to do an action. So when we want to speak to our children, recognize that whatever they've done, if they've done a sin, that doesn't mean that they are sinful. That they are the sinful person. They're sinful for that action, absolutely. But that doesn't. We don't label them with that sin. We don't see that now. That's the end of the world for them. No. We all make sins. We all do tawbah, and then we have the intention never to do that sin again, and we repent and we say, "I'll never do that again," and we despise that. So there, the Messenger of Allah is linking something to a despicable act, not a despicable person. And what about the people that the Messenger of Allah is connecting with in these examples? Who are they to the boy? Sorry?
The family members.
Family members. But give me more than that. Mother, sister, daughter, aunt. What is the significance of that? Why is the Messenger of Allah using the mother, sister, the daughter, or the paternal and maternal aunts as an example here? Yeah.
You try give those examples because you don't want someone else doing that to his family members.
Good. Yes.
So that he can then think, how would it be if I did that to other people?
That's right. So you want to commit zina with somebody else's sister or daughter or mother or aunt, but you don't want somebody to commit zina with your daughter, mother, sister or aunt. What hypocrisy! So hate for others what you would hate for yourself. Hate for your women what you would hate for other people's women. Yeah. So this is a very profound point, for the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he could have said to the Messenger of Allah, could have said, "It's haram, stay away from it." But would that have helped the boy, young man? Would that have solved his problem? No. Do you think the young man knew it was already haram? He did. If you're asking for permission to commit a sin, you already know it's haram. So the young man knew that action, zina, was haram. And actually, you don't have to be a faqih or a mufti or a mujtahid to know that zina is forbidden. It's very clear amongst everybody. It's one of those very basic understandings. Yeah, you know zina is forbidden. So he knew it was forbidden. He very clearly knew it. So if the Messenger of Allah said to him, it's forbidden, that would not have helped him. But instead, he built those layers and layers and layers on top of that. That means that when we talk to our children, we can't just expect them to say, we can't say that's haram and that's enough. We need to build upon that by saying why. Yeah? That why doesn't mean the why is that haram, because that's not the issue. We're not talking about illa. We're not talking about the reason why Allah has legislated a matter. What we're talking about is what is the impact of somebody doing this action on somebody else? What is the impact of society? What is the impact on you? What is the impact on your, you're talking about other layers of arguments you're building on top of that to try and build the aversion and hatred towards certain things. I remember, when I was growing up, my mother used to say to me, yeah, if alcohol ever spilled on your hand, you're going to have to cut off your skin. Yeah, I remember that vividly. Yeah, I think about it, I was so shocked when my mum told me that. We were walking down the street going to shopping. I must have been about 7 years old. 6, 7 years old, really young. If alcohol ever goes on your skin, you have to cut your skin off. I thought, I'm never going to touch alcohol. I'm never going to smell alcohol. I'm never going to come near alcohol. If I see alcohol, I'm going to run a mile. Yeah, I don't want to cut my skin off. Now, obviously, it's wrong to a certain extent to say that because that's not true. But what it builds is this idea of aversion and hatred towards something. When you link something, something bad to something, to an action, and you closely link it to an emotion of a person, you build a very strong aversion to that. You think, I'm never going to touch that. I remember when I was at school, we used to say to each other, sometimes somebody used to say, I was with a lot of Muslims, we had a big Muslim population in our school, and we used to be sitting down and somebody used to say, yeah, that person ate pig the other day, and everybody would turn at him and say, what did you say? Because I said that person had pig. Don't say pig, say P-I-G. It's such a dirty thing, you can't even say the word. And when we were at home, every time these things were mentioned, pig is disgusting, all the words were used to show that that's a disgusting thing. That built aversion and hatred towards even approaching that thing. That's why in some communities, drug dealers will never touch alcohol. Muslim drug dealers will never touch alcohol, but they will touch drugs. The aversion to the alcohol has been set in them. Alcohol is so disgusting, but not drugs, is not seen in the same light. Even though it's just as bad, just as awful, and just as disgusting as alcohol. We need to build aversion to the action into our children, make it strong. Okay, what else can we learn from this? Why did the young man come to the Messenger of Allah? Was he a stranger to the young man? Do you go to a stranger to ask something as difficult as this? No. The Messenger of Allah would have had a good relationship with the young man, isn't it? You only go to you go to the people you know well to ask them issues which are sensitive, isn't it? You don't go to a stranger in the street and say, look, I'm having marital problems, can you advise me? No, you don't do that. But you go to your friend and say, look, I'm having some issues. What do you think I should do? And then you go to someone who you trust, respect, and you know that you trust the judgment of that person. That's why everybody used to go to the Messenger of Allah. So because he was approachable. He would allow anybody to come to him and ask him, even though it's a small question, it's a little question that they could have gone to anybody to ask. But they would come to the Messenger of Allah, he would give them the time. What's your question? And he'd give them full attention and say, what do you want? Okay, and he would answer the question in a manner befitting of the question. Because he had the time, and he had built a relationship, and he was approachable. That's what we need to be for our children. Give them the time, the space to ask these things, be approachable, and establish this relationship. The stronger our relationship with our children, the more they'll come to us and ask us these questions. There also tells us things like, don't give up on your child. Never give up on your child. Don't think that anything that your child does that's wrong is the end of the world. Because their behavior can be rectified at any time. It can be changed. Guidance and misguidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the guidance of our children. Keep making dua for our children. Make dua at every moment you make dua for anything, after salah, or at any time when you're traveling, or when you're fasting, or breaking your fast, whenever you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make dua for your children. because the dua of the parents for their child is one of the du'as that Allah answers the most. Yeah, it's one of the oft answered du'as. So make constant dua, because without the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can't do anything. We are living in a delusion where we think that what we do actually impacts things and matters. Yeah, and that what we do leads to the results in those actions. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fully in control over everything and in control over the results of our actions. We need to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help and support at every step of the way in raising our children. So I think those are the key points I think we can learn from this. And really, it's about being approachable, it's about setting relationship with our children, it's about enabling them to come to us any question and taking those questions and answering them. This is very, very important. The reality is that these things need to be spoken about. Every time I go and speak about it, I talk about fathers, because we don't want to talk about mothers. Mothers are a part and parcel of our children's lives. They raise children, they raise our children. I'm here today, speaking to you today, leaving home about 8 o'clock in the morning to come here, and going home about 11 o'clock at night, because there's my wife at home who is raising and looking after my children. May Allah forgive her, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise her rank. You know, the reality is our wives and the mothers of our children do a job of raising our children. But that doesn't mean that us as fathers, are not a part and parcel of our children's lives. We actually need to be a part and parcel of our children's lives. Because if a father is absent from his children's life, I don't mean absent in that he's not physically there, but he's present but absent. That is even more dangerous. He's there in the home, he's a physical presence, but he's not actually impacting the child in any way. He's not interacting with his children, not raising his children. He's not raising children, that's the mother's role. No, that's not the father's role. No, rubbish. That's the mother's and the father's role together. Partnership to raise children. Fathers give 3 things to their children. The 3 A's: affection, affirmation, and attention. The most primary basic need of any child is the need to be loved. It's the primal need of all children, the need to be loved. Yeah? If a daughter grows up not knowing that her father loved her, she will end up in relationships trying to look for a father figure in those relationships. That's the reality. It's similar to a boy. If a young boy grows up not knowing that his father loves him, and he will also try and look for those father figures in relationships, even sometimes same-sex relationships. He'll be looking for that father figure that he never had. Your children cannot ever be unsure that you love them as their father. Yeah? Children need to know that we love them. How do we show our children we love them? Question to you. How do we show our children we love them?
All those 3 aspects, isn't it? Affection, attention.
Give me practical things. Give me a practical example. How do we show in a practical way that we love our children?
So if your kids are really young, right? Let's say 6, 7, 8, they're happy to go to the park.
Yeah.
Have an ice cream.
Yeah.
Get to the shop. Let them get what they want.
Okay.
That's one thing.
Okay. But give me something that's more direct.
So you tell them.
Good.
You say it.
Yeah. If you tell somebody you love them, there's no, does my father love me or not? It's absolutely clear. I love you. Okay, what is there to interpret from that action? No, nothing, no interpretation. I love you. Yeah? Kiss them, hug them. That's the direct ways of showing our children we love them. Yeah? The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was with a tribal chief, and he said, look, he saw the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam kiss his grandchildren. He said, I've got 10 children, and I've never kissed and hugged them. I never kissed them. He was like boasting. I never kissed them. And the Messenger of Allah was so angry. He said, if Allah has taken the mercy from your heart, what can I do? He was angry because the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to kiss your children, hug them and kiss them, and to let them know that you love them. That. You know, when we were growing up, we used to hug our father twice a year. When was those 2 times a year? The Eid, after the Eid Salah, we would hug our father, and it was the most uncomfortable thing imaginable. Because we didn't do it regularly. It was uncomfortable. What was the role of the father generally when we were growing up in society? What was their role in the home? What did they do? What was their main role? They would go out and do what? Work. And that was in order to put food on the table, pay the bills, pay for your clothes, pay for everything. And our fathers would think, look, I do all these things for you to show you that I love you. But for a child, they can't make that connection. Father goes out for a long time, does something, I'm not sure what he does, comes back, and we've got food on the table. What's the connection? My mother makes the food, but what does my... It's like, how can you make that connection? Where's it has to be direct connection. I love you, kiss you, hug you, that's clear. But putting food on the table, what is the connection between that and I love you? So we need to be as direct as possible in saying to our children, love you, kiss them, hug them, yeah? Assure them that I love you. Second thing is affirmation, which is called validation, which is like showing your children that they are valued and they are valuable. This is very, very important because, in the Asian background, there's a tendency to focus on the negative and not the positives. A child does his GCSE results and all A's, but one, and he got a C or a B. The father will automatically scan it and why did you get a B? Yeah? What happened there? Not alhamdulillah, excellent, you got all A's, well done. You put a lot of effort to that, excellent. And then, okay, B, okay, that's fine. It's like, but why do we do that? This is wrong. We need to validate our children because I'll tell you some things that, for our children, we need to show them that they are valuable by praising their good actions, their good deeds. But don't focus on the end result. Focus on the effort. Yeah? The end result is not in their control. Imagine there's two children, Ahmed and Abdullah. Ahmed, he manages to do, they're both doing hifz of the Quran. Ahmed, he manages to learn 2 pages of the Quran every day. Abdullah, he manages to learn 2 ayat a day. Who's done better? Ahmed, who's done 2 pages, or Abdullah, who's done 2 lines? Who's better? Some people say Ahmed, but that's wrong. The ability to memorize is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The end result is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not from them. Some children can just read something once and memorize it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them the capacity to memorize in a very strong way. Other children may take 2 hours and put more time and effort into it, and they're only able to learn 2 ayat. Focus on the effort, not the result. When you focus on the effort, you'll also say, carry on, do that more and more. Well done for looking after your brothers and sisters. You put so much effort into that. I can see you really helped us in doing that. Really, Jazakumullah khairan for teaching your brother or listening to his Surah Yasin. Jazakumullah khairan, that was very good. You were very patient and you really helped him. Jazakumullah khairan. Yeah. So you're reinforcing the behavior you want from them. Focusing on the negative behavior doesn't help. Doesn't actually get children to behave better. But focusing on the positive does. So focus on the positive effort, not the positive results. Now, attention is about time. Sometimes we focus on the giving of gifts, giving big gifts to our children, that gadget, that iPhone, that iPad, different things. We're focusing on all these little things that we're giving our children. Those things will break after a year or 2 years or 6 months. Those things they'll forget about. They don't have any intrinsic value. But what is valuable is actually your time. The reality is, the time you spend with your children is a time they'll remember when they're older and say, I used to go with my father to the masjid. We used to pray Salatul Maghrib, then we used to listen to this bayan, or we used to do this dars, or listen to this talk, and then we used to come home, and on the way home, we sometimes used to get a kebab roll, or we used to have something to eat, and we used to have chicken and chips, we used to go home, and that's all memorable. These are memories, positive memories. That not only does that build a strong relationship to you and your child, but also they'll remember that later on and say, yeah, I remember my father, and that will build a strong relationship with you and your children. You know, the reality is that, you know, for our daughters, you know, they're growing up in a society where one characteristic that they possess is elevated above all other characteristics. What is that characteristic? That superficial characteristic. How is a girl judged in this society? Based on what? What key criteria the girl judged in society? In this society, in a secular liberal society, what is it focusing on? Her beauty, her looks. That's right. So whenever a beautiful woman is, if there's advertising a product, they put the beautiful woman on that. If they've got a fashion magazine, they put beautiful woman on that. Everything you want to sell or buy or do anything with, you use a woman. And that sends a message to girls that really what matters is your looks and not what you do, what you achieve, or the effort you put into something. So we've got to disrupt that image, that impression, that concept. The way we disrupt that is by using the 5-to-1 ratio. This is something I've come up with, 5-to-1 ratio. For every one time we say something positive about the way she looks, we say 5 more things about the effort she's put into something. The effort you put into doing that piece of work was excellent. The way you recited that surah was fantastic. Well done, Aisha. You know, well done for looking after your brothers and sisters. Well done for the effort you put into helping your mother. Yeah. We talk about things which have got tangible achievements, things which are about them, not something superficial. Think about it. Society is focused upon a characteristic that people do not have any say in. Somebody is beautiful, they go, look how beautiful I am. That person is beautiful because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them that way. They had no say in that matter. But they're arrogant in thinking, look how beautiful I am, as though they had some say in that. They contributed to that somehow. Not only that, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So beauty has a particular idea in society, but that's not objective. There's not one idea of what is beautiful. There could be the most superficially beautiful woman in the world, but the way she behaves, the way she behaves can make her the ugliest woman in the world because of that behavior. Yeah, because behavior is because beauty is not just about the way you look; it's also about what you do. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He doesn't look upon the outward form. He looks upon the deeds and the intention and all the good that you do, the amal that you do that is good. Because why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judge us upon something which He created? He judges upon things that we have choice in. Whether we do the good deeds, whether we worship Allah, whether we give in charity, whether we pray salah, whether we do nawafil. All of these things are in our control. And that's why Allah looks upon those things. The final thing I really want to talk about is, the importance of discussing these issues with our children, these subjects with our children. This is a cartoon. The father is coming to the child and saying, I think it's time we had to talk about sex. And the child says, what would you like to know? Because the reality is that we leave these discussions so late. Yeah? We leave these discussions so late. By the time we speak to our children, they already know all these issues. They've already been affected by society, we live in a hypersexualized society. They hear from their friends, they hear from the media, they hear from the internet, they hear from social media. We need to ensure that we address these issues with our children. And these are some of the points that I think we should take into account. We need to have regular, ongoing discussions with our children. In the past, they used to have this idea of the birds and the bees discussion, where a child would come up to the age of maybe 10, 11, 12, and a father would take the son out, the mother would take the daughter out, and they would discuss all the birds and the bees. This is how babies are born, this is what happens. The father's uncomfortable, the child is uncomfortable, nobody really benefits from that discussion, but the job is done, and the box has been ticked. But it's not effective, because if you never discuss something with your child, and then suddenly you discuss it with them, it's awkward, it's strange. But if you're used to discussing issues with your children around our values, what we believe in, and fielding their questions about these issues in a very natural way, then when it comes to the later discussions, it's very easy to have those later discussions. It'll be natural. So you decide when to start, the earlier the better. There's no starting early starting age for this. Not only that, but age is not really a good indicator for when you discuss different things, because there's also an issue of developmental maturity. Children develop at different stages. There could be a group of children of 10 years old, all 10 years old. Maybe you have 30 10-year-olds in a class. Now, the developmental maturity of some of those children will be higher than others. Yeah? You could say something to all the children, some children will get it, other children will say, what did he say? What do you mean? Because children develop at different stages, they have different levels of understanding. We need to focus on their level of understanding. And that's why parents are best equipped to have these discussions with their children. Because they know about what their children, what developmental stage their children are at. Because they see them every day, they understand what level they're at. Always try to understand your child's world. You know that the Messenger of Allah was talking to the young man. The young man, he would have done anything to protect his mother, his sister, his daughter, his maternal and paternal aunts. He would have done anything to protect them. Because those were women in his life who he loved. So the Prophet connected with his reality. We need to connect with our children's reality. Yeah. Imagine our children have never been to a village in Bangladesh or in Pakistan or in India, and we're talking to them. All our examples are about villages in those countries, so far removed from their everyday reality. Those examples don't resonate with them, don't impact them. But if we understand the reality, even if they're football fans, they like football. Give examples of football. They love cars. Give examples of cars. They love some particular subject. Use examples from their reality to get them to think about our values and building our values and reinforcing our values. Yeah. Agree a plan together. The mother and father need to agree a plan together and work together to fulfill that role. Tell your children no questions are off limits. But when they come to ask you a question, don't ask that. Because if you ask them to come to you and they do exactly what you say, then respond positively. That doesn't mean that if they come to ask you a question and you're busy and you're taken off guard, that you have to answer it straight away. You can say to them, look, Jazakallah khair for answering that question, Ahmed. Very, very good question. I'm really glad you came to ask me that. But can I talk to you about this tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow I'll definitely come back to you on that. Is that okay? Okay, good. I'll come back to you tomorrow. Then you can actually then prepare yourself. You can speak to your wife. You can come together and say, look, Ahmed asked this question. You can fit it like a jigsaw, the pieces together as to what prompted him to ask that question. But also, you can ask your son, where did you hear that? Your son says, I heard this word. Where did you hear that from? Not in a threatening way, or not in a way to say that why did you ask that, but just to ask, just inquiring, because it's important to know where the influences are coming from. If you know where the influences are coming from, then actually you can take some steps. If it's from their friends, you can take some steps. You can understand where the influences are coming from. Expect the best, prepare for the worst. You've got to ensure that you set the highest standards of behavior for our children. Expect the best, but prepare for the worst. Meaning, we don't encourage bad behavior. We expect the best behavior. But when they make a mistake, when they make a sin, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, if we are perfect and we never make mistakes and commit sins, then that we can tell our children not to commit sins and make mistakes. But in the meantime, we recognize that is the nature of human beings. We make mistakes and commit sins. Now, I came across an example which I wanted to share, which actually is a bad example of how to set low standards and expectations. So a mother was saying to her son once, I love you so much that I'll always love you. It's a good thing to say to your son. But then she said that I love you so much that even if you get your girlfriend pregnant and bring her back home, then I'll still love you. And that's completely wrong, because that's setting low expectations. Even if you don't mean it like that, your end conclusion is, I love you. By giving that example, you're saying to your son, okay, my mother won't be angry with me then if I have a girlfriend and get her pregnant and come home. So maybe I'll do that. Because you're setting standards for behavior. We set the highest standard of behavior. We are Muslims. We believe in these standards of behavior. This is how we behave. Yeah. Then if at any point they make a mistake or commit a sin, we deal with it then. We deal with it then, whatever that is. But don't encourage that. It's called green lighting bad behavior. You're given a green light for bad behavior, don't do that. Share and live your values. We believe in Islam and our values. We live our values first and foremost and share it with our children. We need to really talk to the children about the values that they believe. Because you know, the children that are more vulnerable to the messages that are sent, you know, from all these people who are sending messages to our children about different ways of living and lifestyles. Now, if our children have not got clear positive values to begin with, they're like an empty vessel. So that vessel can be filled very easily. But if you fill that vessel with our values, it's much more difficult to replace existing values than to build new values. If the first time our children hear about LGBT type issues, same-sex relationships, is from the school, that's wrong. The first place they should hear it from is us, from our perspective and our values, what we believe in, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger have taught us. Yeah? That's the way we need to respond to this. We need to reinforce, which means that we can't expect one conversation and discussion to be enough. We need to reinforce our values consistently, using real life situations and listening and asking questions, because nobody likes to be lectured. People prefer to be in a dialogue, a discussion. And discussion has more effect. One of the things that I did mention when I gave the example of the young man who sought permission to commit zina was that the Messenger of Allah could have easily given him that answer in a different way. He could have said to him, you know, you want to commit zina with somebody else's, you don't want somebody to commit zina with your sister. You're happy to commit zina with somebody else's sister. He could have said that. But he didn't say that. Rather, he asked the question, yeah, which is more powerful. You know, if you give your children the answer, they'll be happy with it. But if you lead them to the answer, they'll be much more happier with the answer. And that answer will be their own answer. So, your child comes to you and says to you, what is 5 plus 5? You say the answer is 10. They'll be happy, they'll go away. When you say to your child, okay, bring 5 of your toys. They go and find 5 toys, takes them a while, they come and bring them. Give me another 5 toys. Another 5 toys? Okay, let me go find another 5 toys and come back, put it in front of you. They count them all up. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What's the answer? 10. Wow, yeah, that is 5 plus 5 is 10. Now that's their answer. They come up with the answer themselves. You've helped them, and you haven't given them the answer. When somebody comes up with an answer themselves, they're more likely to remember that answer, and they're more likely to what it called internalize the answer, to accept that answer as their own answer. But not only that, also create the ability for them to think through a problem. Give them the thinking skills to solve problems themselves. Because you're continually telling them, this is how we think about it. What about this issue? What about that hadith? What did Allah say about that? What did the Messenger of Allah say about that? What do you think would happen if you do this? So you're making it more powerful, you're leading them to the answer, and they are developing a thought process around developing their own answers. That's more powerful. That's hugely powerful. Finally, what I want to say is the same thing is broken down into 3 parts. Yes? This is a simple framework that I created about this. You know, for essential elements that are going to happen to them, they need to know before it happens. So boys go through puberty, girls go through menstruation. Before these things happen, they need to understand the reality of them. Because firstly, there's a huge change to their bodies. They can't be caught unawares. This is bad. But also, they need to understand them in relation to their lives as Muslims. Because when puberty starts, the starting process for them to develop from a child to a man, child to a woman starts. And at the end of that process, they become mukallaf. They become accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's a huge step which needs to be celebrated. But they need to understand how that impacts their lives. Now you can discuss the essential elements by linking those changes to puberty, to fiqh. So for example, what happens when you have a wet dream? Yeah? What do? You have to do ghusl. Yeah? You can't pray salah unless you have ghusl. What happens when you go to the toilet, yeah, and you want to pray, you need to make sure that you wash yourself properly, because if you don't wash yourself properly, your salah is invalid. So you're linking something linked to their hygiene, something intimate hygiene, to something linked to their life as Muslim. It also says that when you come to a room and the door is locked, you knock and seek permission before entering, because that's what you do. This is a Quranic injunction to seek permission before you enter, because somebody could be changing or somebody could be doing other things that shouldn't be, that you need to seek permission before you enter. So all of these things are things that we talk to our children about. You know, the issue of etiquette when dealing with the opposite gender, opposite sex. Yeah, when you're dealing with girls, you can deal with them in a very formal way. You don't engage in discussions which is a frivolous discussion. You don't stay in the same room as them in khalwa, in seclusion. You don't have physical interaction. So we set boundaries. When you're walking down the street and you see women around you, you lower your gaze, which is what the default position is regarding seeing members of the opposite sex. Then teachable moments are second part, which is about using real life situations to raise discussions with our children, so that not only do they understand our Islamic values, perspectives on issues, but that it's a proactive way of naturally discussing issues. They hear you're doing the school run, the radio's on LBC, and something comes up that you haven't been able to turn off the radio before it's said. Yeah, something about sexual abuse, for example. You know they've heard it. Yeah, and you say, what did you hear that on the radio? Yeah, that man said this. What do you understand by that? And you have a discussion around that, because we can't avoid things which they are exposed to. But the way we deal with them is by building on them an understanding of what they've come across. Now, the response you give depends on their age. So if they're 5 years old, you don't go into huge detail. If they're 10 or 12 or 13, then you go into much more detail, because because you're building that discussion on previous discussions. So using teachable moments is a way of using the reality around us to build and nurture their values. And an honest answer is the final thing. Making sure that we give them honest answers to questions that give them. We tell them, ask us anything, ask me anything as your father and mother, and give them honest answers. And those answers are dependent upon their age, the answers dependent upon the developmental maturity, and those type of factors. Finally, so with the post we're doing, I'll just talk a bit about the work that we're doing as a final slide. So we're doing the postcards. The postcards are no longer being done. We're carrying on these seminars. I think this is the 36th seminar we've had in 2.5 months across the country. We've got another about 16 planned before Ramadan. So inshallah, please make dua that they are successful and we reach more people with these types of events. We're going to do khutbah templates as well, because we want to ensure that these issues are dealt with on the minbar, because these are issues which are affecting our community. They need to be addressed from our perspective as Muslims. Yeah. So we're doing khutbah templates in association with ulama to ensure that happens. We're going to create the localized parental groups across the country, the parental toolkits and the videos, which inshallah should be released this week. And then we're talking about, we want to develop an alternative curriculum for makatib and madaris, a book for parents. We're going to do presentations on all these topics, like short 5-minute videos that cover all of these topic areas and more. There's actually more topic areas I want to discuss as well in 25 short video presentations, so that people who don't normally come to these events can watch them on their phone, can understand and make small changes in their lives and the lives of their children, so that we can try and build an Islamic community, inshallah. And then we did the day courses, which I've done across London, which is like a whole day course on all these subject areas, which go into much more detail than this presentation allows. So that's really it. These are my contact details. So you're free to contact me if you've got any questions or if you've got any suggestions. If you want to support our work in any way, then please do get in touch with us, inshallah. I would ask finally that we talked about the parental groups that we want to set up. If you can, leave your details, and I'll ask the brother to pass this around. Leave your details so that we can start contacting you with the details of the toolkit that we created, the videos that we created, and also ensure that we establish the groups in the local area. Because the point is, we need to ensure that the discussion between parents and schools is constructive and is positive and avoids conflict. Because when conflict happens, you end up with no solution. There will be, first of all, school and the parents will be at each other's throats, And secondly, the solutions will not be achieved. Rather, there'll be a standoff between schools and that's really what we don't need and want. So we need to try and avoid that at all costs. Now, if a school doesn't listen, if a school doesn't respond, if a school's digging its heels digging in its heels, then we will then respond in a different way. Absolutely, we're not going to just expect schools to walk all over us. But we start with a good gesture to the school to say, look, let's work together. Now, if the school throws that back at your face, then we've got to respond in a different way after that. We're also going to create the guidance document which will support you in being able to address these issues with the schools so they understand our viewpoints as a Muslim community and what values and beliefs that we have. Jazakumullah khair. If there's any questions, then please do raise them. I think we had a question from a sister. I'll read it and then it says, how can we tackle the comparison that school staff point out when they ask parents freely allow their children to play games hours on end that include shootings, killing, blood, but they don't raise issues on that, but teachings about same gender, families, LGBT, etc. is a big issue to them. And why? In my presentation, and we set the standards for our children. Yeah, the standards for our children, and we don't have. If we believe that our children need to be taught about haya, we don't allow them to watch films or programs that go against our concept of haya. If we believe in for raising our children and ensuring that our children are raised within our system of our values. Otherwise, schools will say, look, on the one hand, you allow your children to play these shoot up games, but then you're moralizing to us about how we are teaching these things to your children. So we've got to stick to our values and ensure that we don't become hypocritical in what we believe and what we do. That's very important. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Even if there's any clarification, if you say that, look, I don't understand that first bit about relationship education, or there's some issues that you want clarification on, please do ask either today, or you can. The best way to contact me after today is probably via WhatsApp or email. So send me a message, inshallah, I will answer you. Sometimes I get a couple of hundred messages during a couple of days. So please do bear in mind that in mind, and I will get to your message at some within or after I've gone through all the messages, inshallah. So please do be patient. Jazakumullah khair.
For taking his time out. Not only his website as well, he's been working in this area for numerous years, and he's taken it as his own task, single-handedly arguably, to deal with this. So the more we can support his work, the better. So I appreciate that. Jazakumullah khairan. I also want to say that the ulama, especially here in Bradford and in other cities, I'm sure, have also taken upon them the responsibility to ensure that the identity of our children is preserved for our future generations. So we are at the moment, we are in an Islamic school, which is in the daytime. We have an Islamic school running, both a boys' school and a girls' school. But if for those who can't attend Islamic schools because it doesn't solve everybody's problem, then we also have an Islamic madrasa in the evening. And in that way, the student can actually learn both in terms of their aqaid, their fiqh, and all aspects of their practice of faith. It's very important for us. Sometimes we prioritize wealth over our children, but it's very important that children are our priority. They're the ones that we're bringing, they're the ones who are our future, and they're the future generation. And it's our responsibility, as Yusuf explained in great detail, very eloquently, it's our responsibility to ensure that they are looked after. And there's numerous narrations, and I'm sure you've already heard, and I'm sure you are rushing to want to get home now. You've been sat here patiently for so long. Rasul said, every one of you is responsible. You have a legal responsibility. And every single one of you will be asked about his responsibility. So yes, we will be asked about our prayers, we will be asked about our zakah, we will be asked about all aspects of our faith. But the one thing we will be asked about is also our responsibilities. Bringing children into this world is not just a case of, as I'm sure it was vividly described to you, hence the reason why children weren't necessarily allowed. It's not just an act, it's the responsibility that comes with that child, that soul which is breathed into that child, and the responsibilities we have to ensure as we're nurturing them. And that's an important aspect of Islam, is tarbiyah. As we nurture our children in order to ensure that they are confident adults. So when we are and we're dead and we move on to the other life, that we've left them confident to be able to believe and have that self-identity and confidence to go about their everyday life. So again, I want to extend that gratitude on behalf of our institute for Yusuf Bai to take this time out. The work will continue. Please do visit his website so you can see the information in there. And again, I thank you, sisters and brothers, for attending. It will be available on our YouTube channel, so you can visit there and then forward it on to others, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.